Well, thank you very much for allowing me to be here today, and I appreciate the chance to talk with you and tell you a little bit about my background. My name is Jack Schron, and I was born here in Cuyahoga County and raised here, raised my family here. Had the chance to go to public school, go off to undergraduate college, received my ROTC commitment. Back in those days, you had ROTC mandatory commitments when I went to college, and from there I received my commission in infantry. I didn't think that was a good thing I wanted to necessarily do for my entire career, so I went to law school and joined the JAG Corps within the United States Army. I ended up serving 3 years on active duty in the JAG Corps, and came back to raise our family here. My wife and I had children born in the United States Army, lived in Louisiana, Virginia, Florida, Georgia, and decided that we wanted to come back here because it was solid roots of this Midwest values. So we came back here, moved back into the same hometown that I went to high school in, Chagrin Falls, and then from there got engaged in local activities to support the schools. I got involved in the school board. I was on the school board for 12 years, gained a passion for education through that, and was president for a number of years on the Board of Education. I came back to town to take over the family business, Juergens Incorporated, and I've been running that for about 30 years now. My dad and grandfather started Juergens right out of high school from Collinwood High School, and so if you can do the math, I'm third generation. Statistically, I'm the one that screws it up. So we've got through the first 30 years so far of the business. Why I'm committed to this is that when it came time to expand our business, I looked at where do we expand, and I knew that it was easy to go to the south or go out to some green field, but I chose to put it right in the heart of the city. I put it right in the worst blighted place, literally in Cuyahoga County, on the Collinwood Railroad Yards. It had been sitting empty for over 20 years. Collinwood Yards are right down there on 152nd Street, right alongside the Shoreway. And we were greeted by such great things as dead animals, refrigerators, packs of dogs, and the drug dealers when I pulled our management team onto that site.
Taylor Road Yard?
No, Collinwood Railroad Yards. The Collinwood Yards were right at the corner of 152nd and the Shoreway.
Okay.
And it's where the intermodal terminal is right now. Mm-hmm. It's frame of reference. After we cleaned it all up, and my management team said we were crazy, and I said, no, there's the green grass right in front of you, where the pile of rubble was, and I said where the oil pit was, there's going to be a pond there, and someday we'll be pulling fish out of there, and the building is going to be changing lives. And today there's over 200 people working at Juergens. Right next to us, 5 years later, the food bank joined us on the property. After that, the Cleveland Clinic joined us with their laundry facility, and now Social Security. So it's a microcosm of the city of Cleveland. Manufacturing, medical, charitable, and a small piece of government out there servicing the public. So like you, when it came time to look at the corruption, people asked me, I'd taken a hiatus from after school board, and they said, would you consider running for county council? And so I did. In 2010, I ran for the county council in District 6, which is the largest of all the districts. It's the single largest population. It had 21 communities, starting from Mayfield, going all the way down through Gates Mills and Hunting Valley to Solon to Valley View, all the way across to over to Broadview Heights, Brecksville, Independence, and then on up to Seven Hills following 77. So I got engaged in the campaign process. There was 100 of us, if you remember that first time when we all went forward.
Yeah, we couldn't interview everyone.
No, it's okay.
There were too many.
Yeah, well, and I think that if you talk to Rick Taft, he and I we both made it through the Donnybrook and got down to representing our two different points of view, and we were successful in getting elected. And Rick and I had a very high caliber race out there, and I've enjoyed. What makes me different than my opponent is I spent 4 years in county government. I understand it from the first hand. When it came time for Ellen, our president, to appoint somebody to chair economic development, she asked me if I would chair the economic development because I know about jobs and job creation. So we are to that point. Fast forwarded. Ed Fitzgerald decided to run for governor. And I looked at the charter and looked at the resume they were looking for, taking names out and just looking for experience and responsibility. And if you look at what I believe the charter says, they're looking for an executive to be that county executive. I come with 30 years experience. They look for a leader. I spent 28 years between active duty and reserves as leadership in the United States Army. They look for experience within the county. I'm the only one that has any experience in county government. I spent these 4 years in county government. So I've seen it not only firsthand, I've seen it when we didn't even have a single rule, regulation, ability to buy even a paperclip as we put all that together starting on January 1st of 2011. And so I bring that with it, with the background and experience. And I also bring a cooperative relationship. I think that if you look at the 11 of us as we come through these first 4 years, you've got to be in the Citizens League, you've got to feel pretty proud of what you did to help form that, and we feel pretty proud of what we did on these first 4 years to actually foster what I consider to be pretty darn good government. I mean, this thing could have come off the railroad tracks. It could have been divisive easily, and we didn't let that happen. All of us worked together to make sure we brought forth good government. So I hope that's within my 5 minutes, and I'm happy to answer any questions about who I am, why I'm here, and why I think I'm actually should be the better candidate based on facts, experience, and background.
Great. You want to go first again?
Yeah. Can you let us know what you think are the 2 or 3 most important things that you would like to address if you're elected as county executive?
Yeah, that's really very straightforward because that comes right out of what my design and objectives are. It comes down to 2 major items, and the third one I'll cover that quickly on the third one because it's not as in depth. That is to fix some of the elements of the charter that needed to be fixed. And nobody who drafts anything can't believe that they drafted the perfect document, and so it needs a little bit of fix. We've already had a couple minor ones. Actually, mine was the very first one ever adopted, which was to create 2-year budgets so we could coincide with the state's 2-year budget, and that was actually passed. So we've got a couple little fixes of the charter, but the 2 main items are that when you read the charter itself, in the preamble, it talks about, in the top 6 components of the 6 points, it talks about economic development, job creation, being worldwide competitiveness out there, and creating this atmosphere for the economics and growth. I bring not a conversation about job creation. I bring the ability to deliver and a history of having delivered job growth. I took something that was a small family business, and today we're a worldwide player with operations in Cleveland, Chicago, California. We have sales offices around the world. So I understand that first component, which is economic development, job creation. And I think I'm talking to some people that have some business background, and you know that one of the key components of a job is to understand when you're talking to an entrepreneur, somebody wants to